Welcome to Soulfire Wisdom with Kate Olson. As an evolving spirit and change adventure navigator, it is Kate's mission to empower and guide you on your path and inspire your truest passions. She will encourage you to share your gifts, speak your truth, and ignite your inner wisdom and purpose. She hopes to do so with a little humor and grace and her own soulfire passion. Kate talks with amazing guests who have embraced the pursuit and are fanning the flames of their own passion, purpose, and soulfire wisdom. Now here's your host, Kate.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Soulfire Wisdom and Totally Awesome, Try Something New and Talk About It Tuesday. So what I tried this week wasn't something totally new because I've done it before, but it's one of those things you have to keep doing over and over again till it sticks, I guess. So I've been in the process of moving, and one of the things that I've noticed in that process was that there were a whole lot of things to complain about, just things that didn't go the way I wanted them to, or, don't get me started. Anyway, I noticed that I was complaining a lot. So I decided to not complain at all the whole week, because I've actually found that it affects the whole way I feel, both mentally and even my body physically, when I'm doing a lot of complaining. And the way that you can know that this is true is check in on how you feel when you're around somebody who complains a lot. They just, drain the energy out of you. And so during my week, it was a hard week, because, as I said, I've been unpacking from the moving process and discovering all these things that the movers that I paid a lot of money for, didn't do the way I would have hoped they had done, like things that were damaged, or I bought a special wardrobe box and then find all of the clothes in the bottom of the box, not on the wardrobe hanger, things like that. And of course, when I discovered those things, the first thing I wanted to do was, complain about it. So I'm, rethinking my thoughts all week long, oh, well, isn't it good that my clothes, aren't totally, destroyed and wrinkled? I can just put them in the dryer and fluff them up, trying to change your mindset. But I guess what I'll say about the whole process of not complaining and going through that rethinking, it lifted a lot of weight off of me. And by the end of the week, I felt a lot better. And it was kind of coming naturally to me. So that yesterday, when in the complex where I live, they have a rule that there's quiet time between 10 p.m. at night and 8 p.m. in the morning. So when the landscapers started making a lot of noise at 7 a.m., my first thought wasn't to complain about it. It was like, oh, I get to get up an hour early. So we have a great show planned for today. And my guest is Tom Ziemann. And hi, Tom, how are you?
I'm fabulous. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so before we get started talking about your book, I want to talk a little bit about the experience that you've recently had with wildfires.
crazy. So you talk about complaining.
Yes.
We've had to do some reframing and talk about the blessings, which we'll talk about here shortly. But where we live in God's country, we are out near Estacada, which, if you remember from the Oregon fires, they were bad. They were bad.
Yeah.
We went from a level 1 to a level 3 in 15 minutes. And my wife, thank God, she took this very serious the night before. We rescue cats, okay? I'm a cat herder, Herder. She had 5, I had 5 before we got married, and here we are today. And she had all the cat carriers out. She encouraged me to get my bag ready, and I took it fairly seriously. Not really, because I was expecting, it's just going to blow over. Well, the next day, when our phones started going off simultaneously, alert, alert, we're getting poundings on our doors from neighbors saying, get out. We had 15 minutes. The fire level went from 1 to 3, and it was bad. The smoke was hideous, but it was bad. So what do? It's if your life passes before your eyes, you don't have time to complain at that point. I guarantee it. We have aquariums in the house. We had to dump our lion-headed arondas into the koi pond. Just careful with them, but threw them in, prayed for the best. Covered the koi pond so the ash doesn't hit it. We have 10 cats trying to corral 10 cats and put them into cat carriers. When one knows they're being caught, they all suddenly skedaddle, gain super cat strength, and that was heroic. But we did it in 15 minutes. We got out. We were blessed. Now, I could complain about the horrific experience of having to evacuate, but I got to look at the blessing. I got to look at the fact that we were very blessed. Thousands of people lost everything. Our home and property were unscathed. It's one thing to be able to have a place to go. It's another thing if someone takes you and your 10 cats in graciously. We came back. Yeah, the house smelled like smoke. I look at it as a blessing that it didn't burn. We bought a HEPA filter to help with that. Blew everything off, blew the ash off. The fish were fine. I got to count my blessings. There are. It's just framing it. And you
yes, definitely.
Very well.
So I do have a question related to relationships.
Yes.
So being faced with something like that, where you could lose your home, that puts a lot of stress. So that's a lot of times when cracks in relationships show up. So
Agreed.
How did you and your wife deal with all that stress?
It's a great question. And you can liken this, use an analogy to what's happening with COVID-19. We're prisoners. If you had a bad relationship going in, unless you're willing to work on it, like you never have, it could be absolutely miserable. I like my wife. She's my best friend. And it was very stressful. And we know, you know when to pick your battles is one of the lessons in the books. You know what things are more important, to be able to look at the big picture, to step back. I'm the real intense one, and she's more of the, not meek, but just calmer, more on an emotional keel, where my anger dragon from my second book is all and then I get it out. But she's very good, and we just realize if we can work together, understand that our relationship is more important than little flare-ups that we're going to have, and work it as it goes along, and that it's every day. It's like we'll talk a little bit about the book hopefully as we go on. Creating the relationship of your dreams. It's most people have a dream about that, correct? They'd love to have it, but then they get it, and what do? It's for us. And what I always say, Kate, and the last time you were kind enough to interview me, I always say, anything I say here and share with you and your wonderful viewers that are on here, I'm not saying I'm right. I'm saying it's right for me. And perhaps you can glean some of my, learn from my mistakes without having to make them. You can live vicariously through what an idiot I was, which I'll share some of that so you don't have to. Getting back to your question, because I digress, my ADD kicks in once again. It's being able to look at the big picture, to walk away when you're feeling frustrated, and then come back. And a lot of times it's like that old song we heard back in the 60s, what a difference a day makes. what a difference a couple hours can make too, because a lot of times we get angry and pissed off, and then I'm feeling like bad, later, and
Mhm.
wanting to fix it because I don't want to carry that around with me.
So I met Tom, I don't even know how long ago it's been now, like maybe 4 years ago.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I went down to Oregon, to Salem, actually, to do an interview on a CT um, network show with Beanie Coyne. And Tom was there waiting. He was the interview right after me. And so he watched my interview and was the audience. So that's how I connected with him. And at the time, he was just getting ready to release or publish his first book. So can you tell us what that was and how you got to the current book that you just released?
Wonderful. Thank you. Yeah, the first book for a guy that never went to college, who went the Navy route. You can imagine the grief that I took when they'd call me to the quarterdeck. Tom Ziemann, my last name. Never had a writing class, didn't go to college, never thought that the ideas that I was putting down on paper would be good enough. I was blessed to have a first guru, Johnny Norman, who, aside from teaching martial arts, he had a dojo called East West Martial Arts. He also taught meditation. In fact, every class that he finished, he always did with a different meditation. He believed that while there were wonderful schools of the martial arts in the United States, that they lacked because they didn't teach the spiritual, the meditative side. And that's what really separated his. That started me on my path. In fact, I got together with him before I went in the Navy. I met him as a Nautilus instructor at Lakeshore Center in Chicago on the north side. Trained with him for a full year, and once I was going in the Navy, he gave me a beautiful leather-bound satchel and said, wherever I went in the world on my travels, to take copious notes. And he'd seen my writing, to write it legibly. And he just said, take notes. And I said, well, what am I going to take notes on? He goes, well, your book, of course. My book? And I said, he goes, that book that you've been looking for, the one that would have all the answers that you wanted, that you've been looking for. And I said, I haven't. He goes, you haven't yet. So he gave me the confidence to do it. So from that point on, I started reading everything. He started me on my path of reading the spiritual, the Bhagavad Gita, the wonderful spiritual books, the Tao Te Ching, just wild things that I had never even really contemplated before. And he started a fire within me, a quest, like an insatiable search for knowledge. And I just couldn't get enough of it. And not to judge it, as Johnny would always say, is just to write it down and take it in and become the watcher of your thoughts. That's another great thought, Michael Singer's book. And I just kept writing notes 32 years later, from seminars and books and hundreds of watching and materials. I still hadn't written it. Finally, one day, I had an epiphany. I need to finish. I heard his voice in my head. It's like that voice, Tom, finish the book. That was it. And from there, it was about a year to put out. It was going to initially be 365 days of Zen. But when I got to the 164th chapter, remember, these are all bite-sized chapters, 1 or 2 pages each, the best wisdom that I had ever heard of, that was written in layman's terms that I can understand, nothing highfalutin. That was just meat that affected me. Like, the truth is one, the paths are many. That, with every negative experience, you reap the seed of an equivalent or greater benefit. Those little wisdom bits were interspersed, but God, the book was over 500 pages, and I was only on chapter 164 as opposed to having small book, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I just changed it to the Department of Zenitation. And it was just designed for a layman where you could open it. My goal was you could open it, you could meditate on the book, put it against your heart chakra, and you think about a question you want to get a different perspective to, open it and see what you get. And generally there'll be something in there that pertains. The universe doesn't care, as you well know, Kate, what we want. It returns what we want. This is my belief. I'm not saying I'm right, but it does. What you hold in your mind, it believes it to be true. Oh, that's what you want. Well, you think in negative points. Guess what? Well, let's send him more negativity. Let's give Kate more things to complain about. Let's trash her clothes around so she can get me out. Same idea. So when we reframe and we tell the universe, like in a relationship, this is what I'm looking for. Holding that picture of your mind of what you want, but more importantly, is doing the work. We know that the universe prefers the backbone over the wishbone.
Well, you're right, except for it's not the universe that's doing that. It's our own subconscious that is kind of the workhorse behind our conscious mind. Our subconscious creates basically what we tell it to. And we are, by being negative, telling it, hey, that's what I want. That's what I focus on.
I agree with you. I just would just say that we are the universe. And there's mystical forces that I believe are out there, whether you call it spiritual, whether you call it nature.
Oh, yes. I believe that there's forces from outside of us that affect us as well. But being a hypnotherapist, that's how our subconscious works for us. So I have the next book you wrote actually surprised me because I didn't see you as having this background that you had.
Oh my God.
So tell us a little bit about that book. And
that was the easy book to write. That one did not take 32 years. I've struggled with anger my entire life. Anger has cost me relationships. It cost me a 17-year relationship and marriage with a wonderful woman. My fault. It cost me jobs. And it wasn't until I was able to look at myself in an unflattering light and say, hey, you're screwed up, dude. We need to fix this, is when I realized that this dragon we all have within us. In fact, my great friend Steve McSwain says many dragons, the ego dragon, the worry dragon. They make great servants. That anger is really can be used beneficially, which I never thought of before. I thought, it's a rush. It's an emotion. That 30 seconds of you getting just pissed off, that you can ruin a relationship that took 30 years to cultivate, just to ride that high. A lot of times people want to feel alive, and we will do destructive, deleterious things to ourselves. We will bring into our worst nightmare of what we fear, a lot of times because we just don't believe we're good enough. My anger was a coping mechanism. My anger allowed me to feel powerful, but yet I was just dying inside. And taming that anger dragon, making it your friend. The anger makes a good servant, but a terrible master. Figuring out how to master it and do it. And Buddha said it best. Buddha, about 2,800 years ago, he said two things that really resonate with me. Number one, that you won't be punished for your anger. You'll be punished by it. Two is being angry at someone else and holding that as like drinking poison and hope they die. Which is just little things that just stick with you. So it took me once I came to terms with it. It allowed me to free up a lot of things in my life. It allowed me to get to the next book, creating the relationship of my dreams, because I had dealt with it to a point where I could deal with another person. I still work on it. That dragon can come out sometimes, and my wife has to come out. And today she said, I'm pounding on my keyboard because I was being aggravated by my computer. Nothing was happening when I'm pushing it, right? And she goes, have you meditated today? No, I have not. It's on my to-do list. So, yes, anger.
when I met you, you were just about to get married to your beautiful wife, Michelle, and I watched as you planned and had your beautiful wedding, and now you've been married for a while, and yeah, so um, so I'm guessing that had something to do with your book that you just wrote. But can you fill in a little bit of the details on what motivated you to write that?
Absolutely, because until we deal with the inner problems, the things that we have, how can you possibly expect to find that, or exactly to find exactly what you are in another person? So I had a lot of things I needed to work on. And a lot of these ideas that were in this book, I had to put into practice. It's one thing to write a book, but it's another thing to actually live, to walk your talk, as Maslow would say, to become congruent. And I had written a lot of these stuff down. In fact, this was part of other books too that are actually in here. Everything seems like a step, like you step on, to go up to one ladder up the rung, to move on, as you well know, on to other points. So I had this book already in me. I was actually practicing it. I had my anger way more under control than I ever had in my life. And I knew that if I could do this, if I could create the relationship of my dreams, to manifest it from fantasy to reality, that anybody could. And people go, well, Tom, is that about a soulmate? And I said, yes, it is. The soulmate is you. It's becoming, rather than seeking out, which really the book, we did it. I have a wonderful graphic artist, designer, Eric Lebant, and we did this in the way of a Daniel Steele novels, because if you're like, I mean, I want to sell books, but I also want to give meaningful information when people watch these, that you don't have to buy the book. Well, I could too, sure, but you'll be able to glean something from our conversation here that could be that aha, that epiphany. We did this in a way so it would, you have 8 seconds on Amazon. People look at the book and go, oh, no, I got to read the other side. So yes, we wanted the idea of creating the soulmate, but really the entire relationship. You're looking for that amazing relationship that many are. It all begins within. It's that relationship of yourself that truly, I believe, is absolutely paramount and critical to you find that other connection, no matter what it is.
Yes.
Even if it's single. And that's another thing. Some people love being single. This book is for you as well, because that you develop this relationship with yourself, and all of your relationships, not just romantic ones, can change and prosper and grow and bloom and blossom and become incredible.
So how would you say that your book, I mean, there's so many books on relationships that, I don't think I could even count them. So how is your book different? What do you think it offers that maybe other ones don't?
What I can say is that every book that I've read, and there's some wonderful ones, The Love Languages by Gary Chapman, incredible. Dr. Gary Sellier, another one, just Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, absolutely great. And they all have wonderful points. When I wrote this one, I wanted to write it in a way that you wouldn't have to have psychological vernacular, big, heavy words to be able to understand it. I wanted to write the book where it would be understood, not just intellectually, but emotionally, where it spoke from. I did groups on Facebook where I put questions out. I watched literally 100 TED Talks on this. I've read and listened to so many books on relationships, and I was wondering what were some of the key points that they all talked about, but what weren't in there. How could I bring an idea to people in my own way? Really, there's in any book, there's really no new ideas. It's up to us to discover them and to put them into practice in our own life. But to do it in a way that would resonate with people. And based on the amount of doctors and PhDs and clergies that have actually endorsed the book, I think that it's resonating with some people. And that's what I would say. I'd say to each his own. Some books you're going to like, some you won't. I wrote it from the heart. And I think people will find that if they read it. You read it.
Yes. And the thing that for some reason I'm echoing here. The thing that I took away from it first was Tom, like most experts in something, anything, they have the problem first so they can speak from experience. And then they tell us how they, dealt with it. And it doesn't mean necessarily that we're going to have exactly the same experience and deal with it in exactly the same way, but it sparks thought processes that can apply to our own problems. And that's what I thought your book did. So.
Thank you. Wonderful accolade. You're exactly right. There's a wonderful doctor out there, Bernie Siegel. He's an MD. He's the original anger doctor. In fact, he was kind enough to endorse the first book. And he said in love service, I'm paraphrasing, only the injured can do it justice because you've been there. And if you've actually, when you see a knight in shining armor, you see a beautiful shining armor. Well, that shining armor hasn't been out to battle. There's no scars on it. I mean, sure, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful museum piece, but really the romantic warriors out there, they've been through it. They know what works for them. In any book, you can take one idea that benefits you, you're a winner. If you take an idea and you abhorrently disagree with it, that's good, I say. If you disagree with everything in my book, because it means you know it works for you and you win. My goal is to have people win whatever that they're looking for. I want them to be, if you want to stay single, wonderful. Better relationships with everyone around you. To me, that's a worthwhile goal. Maybe it isn't, maybe it is. Or whether people are trying. I have a wonderful friend that I work with at corporate, and he's been married for 40 years. And before I gave him that, he said, Tom, he says, I've been married a long time. I love my woman, but there's just not that pizzazz. And I asked him, well, why do you think that is? With Socratic method on him. And he thought about it. He goes, not really doing the things that I did initially when I first was trying to woo her. I go, great. I said, do you do date nights? He goes, date nights? I go, yeah, date nights. Are you still going out? He goes, well, no. I said, it's a lot of things that we can do to enhance that wonderful. There's a reason why you're with that person for so long. You've got a history, and hopefully it's not a relationship of convenience. Figure out to do what they do. Gary Chapman says it best. He's just one of my heroes. And he's in the 5 love languages, to know your partner's love language. And it doesn't have to be romance. It could be with your kids, knowing what their love language with specificity is. To me, by using that knowledge to enhance your relationship, it's the magic pill. It's the silver bullet. It is the elixir that can take things from good to great. So getting back to his point, I said, try some of the ideas that are in here. Let me know if you thought I was full of crap or if they actually worked. He came back to me a month later, and he goes, I kind of doubted you damn salesman, you. He said, because you're always selling, Tom, really. And he goes, but I started doing little things for my wife. He goes, I made her coffee. You make coffee. He goes, oh, you said in the Bible that it says a man has to brew the coffee. Hebrews, ha, ha, ha. I said, yeah. He goes, I made her coffee. And he goes, I blew her away. He goes, I made the bed for her. He says, I put a flower out for her. He goes, I'm not a romantic guy. He goes, but I did this little thing. And he goes, it's just amazing. Not just how she felt. She was shocked. It's how I felt after I did it. And I'm going, you got the lesson. That's it. And he says he's developing other aspects that, he's finding stuff that he didn't even know about her. He opened up a little more. He's from that generation where, they did not wear their emotions on their sleeve. They were stoic. a man shouldn't cry and all that nonsense. He's just going to a new point. Go on, I'm sorry.
Playing a role for a lifetime is hard. You know,
Exactly right.
that's what they used to do to a greater extent than they do now. And you know, I can't even imagine, you know, what that would have been like, you know, trying to fit into a mold for 30 or 40 years, because they also, you know, didn't believe in getting divorced. So
you're carrying any, and this is my belief too, and again, I'm not just for me, any emotion that you shove down eventually within you, it will seek expression. It will seek expression either beneficially or in the base and for negatively. And coming to terms with who you are, and it really is acceptance. It's like the old surrender poem that we've all heard and read. It doesn't, you don't have to like it. You're not the same person you were last week, let alone last year or 10 years ago. You accept who you were, say, hey, I can do better if that's what you want to do. And you realize that it's just a growth process. When I'm working with people one-on-one and let's say that they're in their 50s, I said, well, let's talk about, you don't like the way you're thinking right now. Let's talk about when you were 30 and look at where you are right now and look how you thought about stuff. You're a little wiser now? Well, yeah, absolutely. Well, it's just, you can't push that river and you can't change it. You can change your perception of what it was to reframe it. I think that's beneficial than just to beat yourself up. It is what it is. It doesn't mean you have to like it. It means you have to accept and just let it go. It's kind of like the old idea of fishing. Okay? When fishing with an emotion, Edie Weinstein, one of my heroes, talks about this. She has said this to me in a conversation and we talked about this for anger, right? Mm-hmm. Is that you want to forgive. Let's put it in the context of forgiveness. You want to forgive. So you reel that back in and I feel so good. And then something comes up and you're just pissed off and you throw it back out there and you bring it all back up to the surface because we haven't truly let it go. It's still on that line. And at any time that we want it to affect us, because I still struggle with these, trust me, I still have a long way to go on my path. I just figured out better ways, more acceptable ways for me to deal with it. So it's just what do you focus on? Acceptance, allowing.
Yes, definitely. So getting back to your book, what was or is the main message that you really want people to be able to take away from your book?
Relationship book?
Yes.
The main point, to reiterate it again, is that if you're truly looking for your soulmate, is to become your soulmate, to become what you're looking for. All the attributes. There's a lot of exercises. I worked with Edie Weinstein on this book, who's a licensed therapist. I worked with one of the finest. She's not a romance junkie, Jennifer Blankel. She is a relationship coach and has helped a lot of people avoid divorces. And when it was necessary to help them through it, where they even remained friends. So I wanted a woman's perspective on this rather than just the guy. Hey, Joe Sixpack, the Z-Man, the Navy guy. I wanted them to have their perspective in it. And they created exercises to be able to look at yourself and to see, what are you looking for? What issues do you have to work on? What things are you willing to? It's really a matter of little degrees. There's a wonderful doctor out there, Dr. Christian Conte, my hero, and one of the great anger doctors in the world. He was the therapist on MTV on the reality program. And in one of his hundreds of talks on YouTube, he talked about increments. This guy's huge. I mean, he's just like a bodybuilder. I mean, he goes into prisons throughout the United States and works with the incarcerated. He believes that the ideas he shares help lower the rates of recidivism and those of them going back in. And they like this guy. And he's just he's a big, you look at the guy, he looks kind of scary, right? I mean, he's just the kindest, most gentle guy in the world. And in one of his talks, wish I could tell you which one it was if you had an interest to watch it, but he just talked about slow, continuous progress and not judging. And just to make little progress every day. Talk about the Grand Canyon. The Grand Canyon, millions of years ago, it started as something very small. You look at the grandeur today, the splendor, and what it from drops, little drops of water created this incredible worldwide spectacle. And much the human spirit, I feel, works that way too, if we care to work on it. Little incremental steps. It's not the journey. It's not the destination. It's the journey. It's not what you get. It's what you become along the way. That's my belief.
Yes, I think you're onto something there. So,
Got a long way to go.
So what was the biggest takeaway for yourself or gift for yourself that you got from doing this book?
Say that one more time.
What was the biggest takeaway, not for other people, but for you, the biggest maybe gift that you got as a process of doing this book?
Oh, thank you. The biggest process is that, again, it really goes back to the last book too, and this was a continuation of the anger book to get to this point. Being able to see myself in an unflattering light, to be able to work on the areas that I knew I need to work on, to be able to not just intellectually know what needs to be done, but to actually do the work, to do what I needed, to become the person I was looking for. To become, I would do little rituals. For example, I would envision Michelle, my new wife, having coffee. I have a special coffee mug that I put out for 7 years. Oh, I was anal about it every day. I watched her grab that cup, smell it, eyes. I could visualize it, and I saw her doing this. I would put out plates for the dishes I would cook for her. I'm not a bad cook, right? And I would see her enjoying it. Those were some of the things I did. But again, to put it on yourself, that's what's going to create the miracle. That's the message of this book, is what you want, you need to become. To attract. You want to attract a mate, become attractive.
Yes. All those things you're looking for, become.
Everything. Whatever they're that. Here, you just brought up a great point, Kate. And I'm a Star Trek geek, and I think what Spock said in one of his movies is, he said it was about a beast that was out in space, and he said it hungers. Like human, I'm paraphrasing, like humans, it knows it wants, but it knows not what it wants. To know with specificity what we want, that's the key. To another great message, which I love out there, and I think this was from Silver Linings Playbook, and it was that we get the love that we believe we deserve. We get the love that believe we are deserving. A lot of people will get an amazing, beautiful relationship and then screw it up because subconsciously they don't believe that they deserve it. They haven't forgiven. They have work to do. Mm-hmm. And we all. I was living with a psychiatrist in Woodland Hills in California back in the 80s. He was a psychiatrist for a lot of big bands like the Association. Back, Cherish, great songs that they did. And I was asking him, I said, these guys are big stars. Why are they coming to you? And he smiles, and he called me Thomas. He said, Thomas, me lad, we're all small potatoes. We all can use help. And that just really stuck with me, that we can all use help. And it's just, what are you willing, how, as my great friend Betsy Chassie would say, how far down the rabbit hole emotionally are you willing to go? What are you willing to do daily to get what you want? You'll know how much of a burning desire you're going to have by how much time you think about it. It's way after the enthusiasm of what your desire and what your goal and what you want. It's the work. It's the effort. Einstein said that he believed genius was 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. And I think that's the same thing. Anything. And if you love something, hours are going to pass and you're going to go, whoa, haven't you ever noticed that, Kate, when you're doing something and all of a sudden you look up and like hours have passed and you're just totally engrossed in it? And it might even not be something that you don't even like to do, but you just got into that groove.
And I have to warn everybody about this, self-improvement, personal development thing. It's addictive. So, if you aren't serious about it, don't start. Because the further you go, the further you'll want to go.
Yeah, there's worse addictions, and I think that to me, I've got that thirst, that hunger. I know I want to be able to just ask intelligent questions about things I haven't got a clue. Like even like Pythagoras theories, or even some of like what's going on in the Higgs boson, or with the collider, or even stuff that's going on in NASA. Just to be able to ask intelligent questions. I think we grow that way. You can turn that to ourselves too, and ask yourself the deep questions without judgment. There's a difference. There's a difference between discerning and judgment. When we judge, we're putting a blame, in my opinion, on it. We're saying that this is the discern is to look at it and to not assign what it is that we think it is. You can be more of a go on. I'll shut up.
Oh no. But I was about to say that we're getting close to the end of our time. So there's a couple of other questions I wanted to ask you. Yeah. They're kind of those deep questions too. One of them I've started asking everybody who comes on the show, and so there's no right or wrong answer, but so what has surprised you most about life so far?
What has surprised me about life so far? I would say that where I am right now, being almost, my birthday's coming up, I'm almost 60, right? So I have a little bit of hair left. I would say that life is a fascinating journey. It's what we make out of it. The more that I put into it, the more that I got out. The more that I try to help people and not look for anything back, because that was a big problem that I had for years. The whiffum, the what's in it for me. What am I going to get out from doing it? But doing stuff without any with people that can't help me back. That was the aha. That was one of the greatest lessons that I got, and it was the most rewarding.
And that's
answered your question.
You were surprised by that.
Yeah, I was the greater recipient of the gift. I didn't tell anybody what I did.
Okay. So then the final question that I ask everybody is, if you could leave the audience with one takeaway from today's show, what would you want that to be?
It's an easy one.
Okay.
Go easy on yourself. Give yourself a break. I believe truly that we do the very best we can within the limits of our emotional intelligence at any decision that we make. You're not what you did. You may not be proud of something. I certainly know I'm not proud of what I did in my past, but I accept those things. I'm trying to be better, and I am better. As Smiley would say, I'm good enough, I'm strong enough, and doggone it, people will like me.
Yes. So tell people again what the title of your book is and how they can get it.
Oh, great. So all my books are available on Amazon. Look for Thomas Ziemann, Ziemann. Last book, I'm really, based on what my readers are saying about this, I'm really happy about this one. Can't even see in this light right here, but creating the relationship of your dreams. How to Manifest It from Fantasy to Reality. And the foreword is by the great Dr. Christian Conte. So many wonderful people have added accolades and endorsements to the book, and it's humbling beyond my wildest dream. Again, Amazon, and it's just such a wonderful pleasure to be here.
Yes, thank you for being here and talking about your book and other things. And thank you for writing the book. I'm sure that a lot of people are going to get something out of it.
Thank you from your lips to the reader's ears.
Okay, well, we have another great show planned for next week. This month, September, with everything else happening, it hasn't gotten much attention, but September is Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. And I had a guest planned for that topic, but he was actually also part of the people that were evacuated by the wildfires. And so I was waiting to see what happened, if he got to go back to his home, and he has finally. So my guest next week is going to be Frank King, and we're going to talk about suicide prevention and awareness. And Frank he was a writer for the Today Show for 20 years. And he's now a comedian and a suicide prevention speaker and trainer. So be sure to tune in, because I know that a lot of people have questions and feel a lot of discomfort with the whole topic of suicide. And the more we know about it, the more we can do to help prevent it. So tune in next Tuesday, 3 p.m., and you'll probably get a few laughs out of it too with Frank. So I'm just going to say thank you again, Tom. And
Namaste.
I want to thank the audience for listening, and bye for now.
Thank you for listening to Soulfire Wisdom with Kate Olson. We hope you enjoyed the show. If we made you laugh, brightened your day, or sparked a new thought, we have succeeded in our mission. Join us next time when we'll share more secrets and truths and all the magic of transformation that is the journey to Soulfire Wisdom. Always remember, be fierce in the pursuit of what sets your soul on fire.